Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. A group of scientists descended into the Mariana Trench and accidentally stumbled upon a nest of fierce monsters. There are no more places in the world untouched by humans, and the Mariana Trench is no exception. The oil company Tun Industries is constructing the deepest well in the world, reaching a depth of 11 kilometers, in its quest to dominate the oil market. The corporation continues to drill the ocean floor, disregarding the destruction of the ecosystem and the irreversible consequences. News of strange incidents at great depths continues to leak, including mysterious disappearances of team members, prolonged isolation from reality, and later, an underwater explosion that discredits the megacorporation, not to mention rumors of abnormal tremors and the emergence of a new species of deep-sea creatures. Tun Industries presses on with its operations, covering up any traces. Engineer Nora is one of 316 team members working at the Kepler station, primarily responsible for operating the robotic probe. Nora has been submerged for many months and has lost track of the difference between day and night. While brushing her teeth, the lights begin to flicker in the compartments, possibly caused by strange sounds outside the station. During her morning routine, she finds a spider in the sink that has decided to leave its hiding place. Her first thought is to wash it away, but after a moment, she decides to help the spider escape its slippery trap. Nora remembers the words of her loved one, who taught her not to think about the passage of time but to try to live in the present. His positive optimism is very different from hers, but in this moment, Nora is grateful for her cynicism, which helps her stay sane. Suddenly, the noises outside begin to sound like something banging against the walls. A drop of water falls from the ceiling and hits her hand, and a second later, the water begins to gush, breaking the station's structure and flooding the compartment. Nora runs toward the exit, shouting to warn her colleagues about the rupture. The system announces that a compartment has lost its seal at one of the corridor junctions. Nora collides with Rodrigo, and when they reach the exit, they discover that the hatch system is malfunctioning, and the monitor displays an error. Using a screwdriver, Nora forces open the control panel and short-circuits the contacts to restart the system. Two more people rush down the corridor, and Nora hopes they reach safety, but as the fast-flowing water approaches, Rodrigo pushes her to press the button. Torn between her humanity and her responsibility for the station's functionality, Nora reluctantly shuts the hatch, sacrificing 2 lives to save the hundreds remaining. The isolated compartment explodes and collapses under the pressure of 50 tons of water. The shockwave hits Rodrigo and Nora, throwing them away from the door and rendering them unconscious. The system alerts them that the station is facing total depressurization due to the emergency. Injured and bleeding, they try to contact the rest of the team, but no one responds. Rodrigo suspects an earthquake of magnitude 11. Nora hears terrifying noises that resemble a deep roar, so without wasting time, they bandage their wounds and move to the nearest compartment with an escape capsule. Upon reaching the server room, Nora, being a technical specialist, restarts one of the computers and diagnoses the station's condition. She informs Rodrigo that it was not an earthquake and that 70% of the station has been destroyed. Just as Nora concludes that they might not get out alive, she spots on the electronic map the location of the next set of escape capsules. Navigating through the collapsed corridors, they hear a man's voice and find Paul, the team's clown, trapped under the debris. They manage to pull him out unscathed and give him his lucky rabbit. Nora informs them that the only way is through a collapsed ventilation chimney, with the upper floor about to cave in. The trio quickens their pace through the narrow tunnel, but Nora encounters the warm, still body of Mac. Moving his arm aside, Nora continues and descends to the necessary compartment, only to find that there is no escape capsule, but rather the station's captain, trying to call for reinforcements on the radio. As Nora hacks the door system, Captain Lucius orders Paul and Rodrigo to check the submersible equipment and discovers that they are in an almost hopeless situation. Captain Lucius informs Nora that 22 people have already been sent to the surface to bring help for those left behind. However, Nora is intrigued as to why Lucius did not go with them, considering that he has a daughter. Lucius believes that a captain should be the last to leave the ship, so instead of continuing the conversation, he begins to follow protocol. He provides first aid to Nora, stopping the bleeding from her ear and checking her pupils to rule out a concussion. Paul and Rodrigo report to the captain that all submersible equipment is out of operation, prompting Lucius to send Nora to the equipment compartment. There, she finds Emily Haversham and Liam Smith, relieved to see them alive. Nora discovers that they have not been able to contact anyone. The station shakes more violently with each passing minute, and Nora reports that the cooling equipment on the upper floor has been destroyed, meaning that the Kepler core will soon explode, killing the 6-number team. Facing a desperate situation, Captain Lucius suggests that the group take the cargo elevator down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench and walk to the Robu station to increase their chances of survival. Paul, hearing this, is confused about why Nora bothered to save him, since their suits were not designed for such a journey, not to mention the lack of oxygen. The captain assures that he has a plan. They will travel halfway down the tunnel to the intermediate station, where they can recharge and clean their rebreathers. From there, they will follow the beacons across the plateau to the Robu probe. Rodrigo proposes that they instead head to the Shepherd station, as it is much closer, but the captain, seemingly hiding something, dismisses this idea, claiming that Shepherd has been out of operation for a long time. Liam shows a recording of the last signal from the drilling platform. The recording captures screams for help mixed with the roars of an unidentified creature. The instruments show that the water temperature outside has increased drastically by 10 degrees, an unusual phenomenon at such depths. The team doubts the captain's decision, as many of them are inexperienced divers and the risks of death are high. However, there is no other choice. Paul plays an upbeat song and turns up the volume. Rodrigo checks the integrity of all the helmets to prepare 6 for the team but discovers that one has a small defect. Nora helps the captain put on his metal suit, despite his broken arm, and then puts on her own suit. As everyone prepares for the dive, Paul and Liam arm themselves. Lucius explains how to handle the hazardous suits and gives final instructions. Emily doubts her ability to make the journey, but Liam and the captain promise to stay by her side. The system announces that the compartment is depressurized, and the group slowly submerges in the pool. Nora watches the hatch close above their heads, realizing that things will never be the same again. Lucius instructs the team to jump into the cargo elevator as soon as they reach depth, although he does not explain why the rush. Upon opening the outer hatch, which barely holds, Rodrigo notices a small crack in his helmet expanding. When the stubborn door mechanism finally works, Nora sees that Rodrigo's suit has been compromised and begs them not to open the hatch, but it is too late. The sudden pressure change at the bottom of the pool shatters Rodrigo. The captain instructs Emily to keep her eyes closed until he says it is safe, and urges Nora to hold it together, as she is the last to jump into the elevator. Once inside, Nora reveals that Rodrigo knew about the defect in his helmet and recalls him consciously offering her an intact model. The 5-number team advances along the planned path while Paul remembers how Rodrigo always managed to make him laugh. The captain spots a beacon under the elevator on the radar, believing that someone is signaling for help from one of the capsules. Lucius sends Paul and Liam to investigate. Paul hands his lucky rabbit to Emily, asking her to keep it safe, while Nora sets up the cameras. The team continues preparing for the expedition. Outside, initially, Paul and Smith can see nothing in complete darkness, but soon they find a distorted capsule covered in fibrous sludge. Inside, they discover a wallet and, nearby, its owner, tangled in a rope. Suddenly, the body begins to move, and at that moment, something attacks the team. Back in the elevator, the men bring the creature that was devouring the victim. Such a horrid creature has tentacles covered in claws. Emily examines the unidentified creature from the ocean floor with interest, observing its occasional spasms and suggesting that they might have drilled into a hydrothermal vent supporting these organisms at such depths. Unexpectedly, the power system fails, plunging the station into darkness. With little distance left to reach the ocean floor, Nora tries to figure out how to proceed. At that moment, something touches the elevator's outer shell. Paul hopes it is not a monster, and the team begins to wonder how young the creature they killed might have been. When the captain shines a flashlight through the transparent window of the elevator, he sees a monster sitting on it. The group also witnesses the explosion of the Kepler station, and the shockwave speeds up the descent of the cargo elevator. The team rushes to the pressure chamber, puts on their helmets after checking for proper sealing, floods the chamber with water to avoid being crushed upon landing. As soon as they reach the bottom, they quickly head for the tunnel, avoiding debris along the way. Nora stumbles and falls, but Liam Smith helps her up, a gesture that costs him dearly as debris from the station falls on him and damages his rebreather, potentially rendering him unable to move underwater in the future. When the team finally enters the access tunnel to the drilling station, Nora quickly removes Liam's helmet and takes the broken filter from his suit, which caused him to inhale toxic gas. After recovering his breath, Liam feels weak and can barely stand. Nora starts the tunnel system in a non-standard way, and in a minute, a cart arrives to take the Kepler team halfway to their destination. However, the pumping system is damaged, and part of the tunnel floods with water, forcing the team to proceed on foot. Emily, spotting someone's belongings in the water, is on the brink of collapse when realizing that the owner did not manage to escape. The rising water through the cracks heightens the tension, and ahead they face an unpleasant surprise. What appears to be a dead end prompts Nora, being the smallest, to risk checking beneath the rubble. Nora grabs a rope and swims easily through an opening, discovering that the path to the intermediate station continues beyond it. As Emily and Lucius join her, it is Smith's turn. Paul hands his companion a package of cookies he initially wanted to eat, but in a gesture of goodwill, he gives it to Smith. As Liam moves through the tunnel, Paul hears strange sounds behind him, and seconds later, the entire team hears his voice abruptly cut off. The captain orders them to pull the rope quickly to extract Smith from the debris. When they manage to pull him out, Paul removes the helmet and informs them that they are indeed being pursued underwater. Paul tries to unhook the rope, but it is stuck on a rock. Suddenly, the rope begins to pull him down. In a rush, Paul hands his rabbit to the team and asks them to put on his helmet so he can survive underwater if necessary. The deep-sea creature pulls his leg with such force that it literally yanks him out of his suit. Losing another person, 4 of them arrive at the intermediate station, located at a depth of 10.5 kilometers. The captain tries to contact someone, but the station is in such terrible condition that any extra movement would instantly cause a rupture, and tons of water would crush it in seconds. From this perspective, it becomes clear that something or someone has caused irreparable damage to the 6-ton probe. Emily believes that the ocean is seeking revenge because humanity interfered with the natural course of nature. Perhaps the drilling has awakened some ancient beings who now act as guardians of the Mariana Trench. As Smith's filtration system is broken, he asks to be left behind so as not to be a burden. Nora tells Smith not to argue, as no one will stay there waiting for the end, since there is no way to get a new rebreather. Emily and Captain Lucius help Smith by the arms, instructing him to breathe short and shallow to conserve oxygen in his defective suit. Nora, with her flashlight, sees various forms of life swimming quickly around them. As they cross the plateau, the group is attacked by monsters. One of them drags Smith into a cave, but for some reason leaves him alive. The captain and Nora go after him, but Lucius returns to the cave to recover the weapons. The monster takes advantage and pulls the rope to which the captain and Nora are attached. It is so huge that it easily drags both people. Nora and Lucius are saved by a fallen part of the exploded station, resembling a flying saucer. Holding onto it, they float slowly down. However, the captain gets tangled in the ropes. While Nora tries to help Lucius, the same monster attacks and grabs his helmet. Desperate to save his colleague, the captain strikes the creature, provoking it, and as a result, the creature drags both of them again at high speed. Defects appear in Nora's helmet due to the pressure level being so critical that they could be crushed at any moment. The captain asks Nora to let go of the rope, but she refuses. Then, Lucius disconnects from the girl and rises higher before exploding. Nora regains consciousness near the Shepherd Station, located at a depth of 10 kilometers and 700 meters. With her last strength, she reaches the entrance and, surprisingly, activates the system. She removes the defective suit and feels that this is the end. Sitting on the wet floor, the girl's body begins to tremble, and at that moment, her only moral support is the locket from her loved one. Recovering her senses, Nora tries to contact Emily and Smith, indicating her location, where, unfortunately, there are no capsules, but there is still oxygen remaining. Turning her head to the right, Nora sees a photograph of Lucius. Then, she finds his personal locker, which still contains his uniform. In the pocket, Nora finds a photograph of Ellie, Lucius' daughter, who died at 14 years old. She deeply mourns his loss, but her attention is drawn to a map on the back wall of the locker, representing the Robu station, with red wires diverging in different directions, connecting the station to drawings of monsters. Now Nora understands why the captain ordered to jump immediately to the cargo elevator and why he seemed completely unsurprised by what was happening. Seeing her broken filter, Nora begins to think frantically about how to fix it, but nothing comes to her confused mind. The only thing she finds in the station is an old spacesuit. Nora calculates the distance to the drilling platform on the map and, armed with a signal flare with 2 projectiles, plans to leave. The doubts about leaving or staying are eliminated by Paul, the rabbit, which Nora promised to deliver to her loved ones. Walking in total darkness towards the signaling beacons, Nora continues conversing with her companions, hoping that they hear her. Suddenly, Emily's voice comes into her frequency, speaking about her love for the ocean. Besides her voice, Nora hears Smith's heavy breathing. Nora tries to shout to her companion, but in vain. Shortly after, she witnesses Emily confessing her love for Smith, who is probably in such a state that he doesn't even understand her words. By a miracle, Nora spots Emily ahead and rushes to reach her, but since Emily did not expect to see her there, she is startled by Nora's sudden approach. Emily closes her eyes and screams in fear, but as soon as she realizes who it is, she confesses to Nora that she has decided to see it all to the end. Throughout this time, fragile Emily has been dragging Smith, who is barely alive, across the ocean floor toward the station, but now they unite in strength. The journey, which seems endless, finally reaches its climax when the trio reaches the Robu station at a depth of 11 kilometers. The bright probe illuminates the space with red light, and Nora and Emily find hundreds of monsters that are probably asleep or in hibernation. Turning off the lights in their suits, the remaining team advances through a tunnel of organic beings. They cannot be silent, as Emily's alarm goes off, indicating critically low oxygen levels. At that moment, one of the monster's claws descends upon Nora's helmet. She asks Emily to keep pulling Smith toward the station without stopping. The monster wraps around Nora almost completely, but that is exactly what she needs. She fires a projectile at the creature, piercing its shell and saving her life. A minute later, Nora watches hundreds of creatures rising abruptly. The Mariana Trench floor vibrates, and when she launches the second flare, she sees the alpha of all monsters. A creature the size of a New York skyscraper with teeth in 3 rows, which is indeed the cause of the destruction of the drilling platforms. Nora flees from the giant, but it damages part of the station, and the shockwave pushes her toward the entrance. Despite the oxygen deficit, Emily returns to seek her friend and pulls her in. The oxygen level in Nora's suit drops, but since it is very old, Emily cannot remove it conventionally, so she breaks the glass with a fire extinguisher. The Robu station's system demands immediate evacuation of the team. The Alpha circles the structure as if hunting its prey, and now, not only Nora, but the others also see the enormous monster. Among all the capsules in working condition, only 2 remain. Emily puts Smith in the capsule and asks him to stay alive, while Nora hands Smith the rabbit to pass it to Paul's friends and family. Arguing that she is the only one who knows how to operate the capsules, Nora convinces Emily to get in, but Emily realizes that the 3rd capsule has problems and wants to stay to fix it together. At first, Nora gently persuades her, asking her to save herself for the love she feels for Smith, but when Emily begins to protest, Nora hits her on the nose to save time on long discussions. Apologizing to her, Nora promises that they will meet on the surface. The 2nd capsule shoots up quickly, right in front of the Alpha. Nora doesn't try to fix the capsule. She sits in the flooded compartment and smiles faintly, as if she is ready to reunite with her beloved. Nora notices the sound emitted by the Alpha and sees on the radar that all the smaller creatures are rushing to reach the evacuation capsules. Fearing to feel powerless and useless, Nora suddenly realizes that it is just a feeling, and it's moments like these that drive a person to act. Before securing the safety of the capsules, Nora sees her last chance for survival but decides to save her soul instead of her physical body, considering her action as redemption for the guilt of having lost her beloved. Nora plans to detonate all the horrid creatures along with the giant monster. She fully charges the core of the drilling probe and adjusts the to protect the rescue capsules. The nuclear explosion engulfs the Alpha and all the small monsters of the Mariana Trench. In the news, reports emerge about 2 survivors from the drilling site accident, but the company prohibits interviews with them. All materials related to the incident in the Pacific Ocean are classified and not open for discussion. Despite a tragedy of such magnitude, Ton Industries resumes its drilling operations in the Mariana Trench, never having determined the cause of the catastrophic failure.